So as before, consider a Poncelet family of triangles interscribed between an outer ellipse and a caustic, which is a circle. Let's call the center of the circle C, okay? This app allows me to drag the center C around, okay, and continue to satisfy n equals 3 Poncelet. Now, what I'm observing here is we saw in the previous videos, or at least we said in the previous videos, that the locus of x3 is an ellipse whose major axis passes through C. Now, as I was playing with this thing today, I noticed that there's another interesting phenomenon, and that is that the two foci of this locus are always on either one of the axes of the outer ellipse. Look at this. So this focus is over here, this focus is over there. So I thought that this was quite a remarkable phenomenon. So wherever I place C, you can see here that the foci are railed to the axis of the outer ellipse. Another thing that I'm drawing here, I've computed this numerically, I still don't know if this is a true ellipse or not, is this green region here. If C is within this green region, then it is interior to the locus of x3. Notice now C is interior to this green region. The first focus of the locus is on the major axis, the other focus is on the minor axis, and C is interior. If C is on the boundary, on the green boundary, then of course it's also going to lie on the locus. Now a challenge for the viewers here is to try to compute this thing algebraically. I did everything numerically here. And I would like to know if this region, for example, is a true ellipse. Speaking of which, we had talked about in the previous videos of this set of R isocurves, right? These are isocurves for which, if I drag C over them, the radius of the caustic is maintained constant. Okay, now I did further investigation of these isocurves. Although they do look like ellipses with decreasing aspect ratio, they are actually quartics. They're not ellipses. They closely resemble ellipses, but they're not ellipses, unfortunately. Okay, so that's the one note I wanted to make on this video. Let me come back to the exploration. So now we have x3 with the railing of the foci, the green region where C goes inside of the locus. Look at the major axis is always pointing to C, right? So we have this interesting phenomenon. Okay, now what happens to x4? We saw x4. Before, x4 was an upright ellipse, homothetic to a rotated 90-degree rotated version of the outer ellipse. Very well. And an additional property that we saw that is confirmed here is that x4 shrinks to a point when C is in one or two symmetric locations on the x-axis, on the major axis of my outer ellipse. Okay, x4 does not shrink to anything if C is over here. We saw x5, just to recap, had this interesting property of, and now I'm showing this more explicitly, that one of the foci of the elliptic locus of x5 was the center of the circular caustic. Okay, so this is kind of interesting as well. Doesn't seem like either one of the axes is pointing to any specific place. Okay, but you get this focal property here. We also saw that x7, which, to be honest, I'm not sure if this thing's an ellipse or not. Normally, it wouldn't be an ellipse because x7 is not a linear combination of x2 and x3, but it could be. There are exceptions to the rule, right? So our observation in the previous paper was that if a particular triangle center is a linear combination of x2 and x3, its locus is going to be over any Poncelet an ellipse. But this is not an if and only if. So there might be triangle centers which are not linear combinations that for certain Poncelet families will exhibit conic loci. But the one thing we did see with x7 was that it also reduced to a point, not at the focus, but at some other intermediate location of C, and the symmetric one over here. Okay, no phenomena of note when C is on the minor axis of the outer. And then finally, just to conclude this video, repeating here what we saw with x8 before. X8 numerically seems to be an ellipse, or it's a curve that is very closely approximated. But from my numerical investigations, x8, which is also not a linear combination of x2 and x3, seems to be a special ellipse here, which is axis aligned and homothetic. So, you know, I need only to say homothetic with the outer one, with the special property that it's always concentric with the outer one. So it's X8 is sweeping a concentric homothetic ellipse. And I think this is quite remarkable as well. So it has a sort of knowledge, right? This algebraic knowledge to maintain itself in the center of the system. Okay? All right, that's all I have for now.